So you've started your email list and now you're feeling a little bit of pressure to create this beautifully designed and curated email newsletter template for your audience. Well, in today's video, we're gonna go over email newsletter design and some of my thoughts about how you can keep things simple but still effective. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Braden McKee and I teach Pinterest marketing and content strategy to small business owners. If you want to connect with more people, you want to be found in more searches, and you want to grow your email list and your sales, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Okay, so before we get into today's topic, I just want to preface this by saying that you do not need a really polished and curated newsletter template or professionally designed template to be effective with your email marketing. In fact, I think that you can be incredibly effective if you just send the most simple emails, but you stay consistent with that. The biggest takeaway that I want you to get from this video is that simple but consistent is always going to beat out something that is really curated and polished, but you can't stay consistent with it. Now, if your brand is very curated and aesthetic, then maybe an aesthetic newsletter template is going to work really, really well for you. But if that's not your brand, or it's not what is important to you, then I would say let's focus on the more simpler designs and making sure that you're communicating effectively within your written email content before we start trying to jazz things up with your newsletter template and design. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm about to share my screen and I'm going to show you some examples of emails that I have sent and received with some different variations in their design and how designed they are versus not, to show you some examples of how you might want to structure your email newsletters. And I want to say that it is a really good idea for you to take inspiration, of course, and see what's working and see what the trends are, but also you're going to have to figure out what you prefer to do, what you are most likely to stay consistent with, and also what works for your audience. Your audience might not want to see the same newsletter template week after week. They might want some variety. And so having some variations in the flow of your template, or even just the structure of what goes where within the template, is a really good idea to keep up variety and keep people from getting bored. Now, let's look at these different design templates and emails and talk about the structure of each of them. Okay, so this very first style of email newsletter design is the simplest, and honestly, you could use this style of email newsletter design for the rest of your emails and you would be fine. It does not need to be fancy, and in fact, this is going to deliver a typically smaller file size when it comes to email, which can improve your deliverability. Now, we're not going to get into the technicalities of all of that today, but just know that when you are considering a templated email design, sometimes those get larger in file size and can accidentally get put into people's spam and junk folders, even if they did intentionally sign up for your email list. So if you want better improvements on who's receiving your emails and making sure that you're sending out the most optimized to actually land into the right spot in your email list and their inbox, this is the way to go. So this is super simple. Now, you can't see it on here because I'm viewing it in the browser, but of course, when you're reading this in email, this is going to have a subject line, and you can actually see right here, my subject line was, "I'm still traumatized by this." Now, I will say this subject line did pretty good. My open rate on this email was over 50%, and I think it might have actually been closer to 60% after the first couple of days, but this was a pretty good email subject line. The reason being is that a lot of people are nosy and they want to know, what are you still traumatized by, right? So the email subject line is probably one of the main components of your email design in general, and we kind of talked about that at the beginning of this series, but I want you to know that when you're thinking about email newsletter templates and design, none of it matters if you can't get people to open and read your emails. So consider where you're spending your time and what is going to be the most important aspects of your emails. Here I have some branding. I have this on most of my emails because I want people to know that it's coming from me. This is not required, but again, because there's so much noise, there's so much media and social media and news and ads everywhere, I do kind of want people to see my name over and over again and just reinforce who I am in their brain. So I would encourage you at least have like a logo. Some people have an email header, which I will show you in the next style, but I just want you to kind of see a different version. That way you can kind of look at what kind you want to have on your emails, if any at all. Now, this is plain text because most of this email is just writing. I don't have any links in this email or anything where I'm trying to click out to. The fanciest aspect of this email is the fact that I have a GIF here. And sometimes I include them, sometimes I include images, sometimes I don't do any of it. And I just write a very short and sweet email, which is a couple of sentences, maybe a few paragraphs long. Now, this email is a little bit longer, but I have a story here, which I was really trying to catch attention because, to be honest with you, the rest of this email is a quite boring topic, and I knew that I needed to get some attention and be able to relate this and bring some humor into this topic. Otherwise, this email overall was going to be a dud, and I really wanted my email list to know about this particular topic because I'm trying to help them with their marketing, and sometimes the boring stuff is necessary to go over. And so for this email, that is why I included the storytelling aspect in the writing here. And then I included this GIF because, first of all, I love Schitt's Creek and it just went along with the story very perfectly. And then that was my transition point where I transitioned into anyways in all capital letters, which is a very clear transition that we are moving on in the email. What I really want to talk with you today is about email regulation. If I said that up front, you'd never have opened this, which is 1,000% true. And I'm just being honest with my audience. Hey, I knew you weren't going to open this email, but let me show you some things that you need to know now that I've got your attention, right? The goal of this email really was to deliver value and information, and I was hoping to get replies, which I didn't get any replies back, but it's okay. I had a really good open rate, and I'm hoping that this email was short enough that I got my point across, and I'm going to reinforce this point with my email marketing and content marketing students when we're talking about the subject of email, which is that they need to have a preferred or a verified domain name for their email address, not just use a Hotmail, Gmail, or Yahoo account, or even AOL if you still use that. So this is a plain text email, and you can see I've got my signature on the bottom, and that's it. There's no links here, and the fanciest aspect of it really is this. So this is very simple. It's sweet and to the point, and honestly, this is a longer email because I did include the storytelling, but you can literally send a 1, 2, or 3 sentence email. I wouldn't send all of your emails that short because you do want to probably go a little bit more in depth on some topics, but this is a good example of having a just written information, written content as your email newsletter design. Okay, so this is a more templated newsletter design. Again, let's start with the subject line, which is a vital part of your email newsletters because if you cannot get people to open your email, nobody will read them or see them anyways. So this one was Phoenix housing bubble ? This was when I was in real estate, so very relevant for what my audience was wanting to know based on what they were hearing in the news, things like that. But like I mentioned last time when we were going over the plain text emails, you could opt to have an email newsletter banner here, which is more recognizable when you use the same one over and over again, or if you want to theme your newsletters, that could be something fun that you can do. This one is pretty simple because again, this email newsletter has a little bit more going on and I don't want to add any more busyness than I need to. So there's a little bit of text here, and then the first thing that I want to direct them to in this email is a YouTube video. So if you have high value content that you want to make sure your audience knows about, they may not know that you have this content in the first place. They may not know that you have a YouTube channel, a blog, or maybe they do follow you there and they've just missed it. So once that content is out and it's been out for 3 to 5 days, especially with YouTube, you can go and create a newsletter and link to it, and your email service provider should be able to allow you to put in the link and then pull up a thumbnail like this. So this is a great way to repurpose your content and direct your audience back to it, or get people who are on your email list to that content so that you can, again, provide more information, value, inspiration, whatever the goal with that content is. So here I've already got one major piece of the puzzle with the video, and then I also have a little bit of text here. Now in this one, I also have images, which are market updates for real estate. That is high value information. It goes hand in hand with that video above. But again, I'm adding a lot of elements here. I've got a video, I've got text, I've got images. Okay, now I'm going down and I've got more text. Okay, now I'm coming down and I've got multiple links. So there's a lot going on here. Now, I know people who do newsletters every single week that are much more in depth on this, and they become very known for it. This is what their audience and their email list knows them for. They trust them, with this information is going to come to their email inbox every single week. But again, for me, this is about as in-depth of a newsletter as I want to have. I feel like this is pretty busy, and it's already a lot where I'm giving people multiple things to look at and click to. Not only do I have a video, I have images, which these linked to Instagram, these link to a website page, and then this link goes back to Instagram for a local piece of content, which is a different style of content, a different purpose, right? So I already feel like this is pretty busy. This is going to be a bigger file size in the email inbox, but you really need to decide and play around with and experiment what type of style and how big of a newsletter is going to work for you, for your email list and your audience. But again, this is just another example of a more templated style newsletter. Of course, I'm going to end with some text, a call to action, and then just a signature. So this is a more templated email newsletter design for you. And again, I know some people who have different colored backgrounds, and this would be a different color than the background down here maybe. I was really not trying to overwhelm my audience. I really wanted to get them to kind of go to a couple of places, and I already knew somebody who was clicking here was probably not ever going to get down to this content. So I'm already giving them multiple options. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but it really is personal to your audience, and you're going to have to figure out the style that works best for you. Now, this next style of email newsletter is not one that I wrote, but I received, and as I was preparing for this video, I really wanted to share it with you because it definitely grabbed my attention, and I read the entire email. I was very hooked with this style and format. So again, you don't need to be locked into one specific style or format or design type. You can experiment, you can test and find out what is going to be the best fit for you and your audience. And of course, I'm going to say if you can switch it up from time to time or from newsletter to newsletter, even just adjusting your placements of information or photos or anything like that, that can be very helpful. That way things don't get too routine for people, and you can continue to get that interest and attention. So this is from Kristen. She's a graphic designer. I took one of her workshops on Pinterest design, and her subject line was how I'd design a ... Now she's got her email newsletter header here, which has a scalloped edge, which is just a little bit different, and I like that. And then she goes into a format of text, image throughout. Now, you do not have to have an email that follows this format that will be as long as hers is, but she's taking us through a transformation here of how she took her friend's Facebook group cover image and how she transformed it as a graphic designer. So she's taking you behind the scenes with her words and her thought as she's writing out the email, but she's also showing us each stage of the design. So in image format after the text, which for me really hooked me in. And I was thinking, okay, how could this be applied to some different industries? So let's say that you're a boutique owner. You could do how I styled the front of store mannequins. I think that would be a really interesting email newsletter, and to see the step-by-step behind that. Or if you are a personal trainer and you could do how I would come up with a new workout plan for a 6-week postpartum mama. Now that would be very specific to your audience, but that would be really interesting to see your thought process and what you think about for the behind the scenes process of putting together working with your clients. So I actually think I'm going to test out this email format in my own email marketing efforts and see what kind of content I can come up with, maybe how I would redesign top pin styles or something like that, which I'm also planning to do a YouTube video on, but I'm going to test it out and see because I read this whole email. Now, some of you as I go through may notice there's a lot of information in this email, but again, your formatting and if your audience is really somebody who is interested in what you do and what you have to offer, they're more likely to read a longer email, but you do not have to have a long email for it to be effective. So just remember that when you're thinking about your formatting, it's not the amount of content or the length of the content, it's getting to the point and communicating what you need to in the appropriate number of words and images, so that way you get your audience to the end point, to the resolution, to the conclusion of the email, right? You don't need to be having them hanging on to words or trying to read fluff for no reason. So just keep that in mind. You don't have to make it long like this email is, but for this email, I do think it was necessary to show her process of designing this. So after her header, she has the greeting and text, and then this is the original. So this is what she started with. And then she starts taking you through her thought process of like, okay, what is she gonna use? What are some changes she's gonna make? So then she starts with version 1, and then you've got more text, more image. Okay, now you see the next variation. Okay, more text. And she's doing a good job of breaking things up with bold text and capitals, things like that. And then here we are, we're going through, we're getting farther down. You're like, okay, I think this is the finished product. But then she goes, but I knew it was made for more. And then you've got this big bold text, which really gets the point across, kind of breaks up this longer amount of text here. And then she's getting to the end because she used some very strategic emojis here. And then ta-da, we've got the ending. So now she goes into a little bit more information about why design is important and how it's much more than things just looking pretty. And then she ends up signing off, and she's not directing you to her product. She's actually directing you to her friend's recipe from that her site right here. So I thought this was really interesting, and another variation. This is simple enough that you can simply replicate it with a greeting, text, image, and then sign off or your signature and be done. That is super simple and easy for any business owner. And I'm sure that you have images, or you can use GIFs in your email service provider, and you can recreate this email design style pretty easily. And it doesn't have to be long to be effective. Now, this was not an exhaustive list of all of the different ways that you could design an email newsletter or just email content in general, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to keep you here for hours. I want you to start emailing your list. I want you to communicate with your audience. And so I really wanted to communicate how simple, but how much variation you could include in your email newsletter designs. And just know that you do not have to have a highly templated, highly aesthetic, a super designed, professionally curated look for your email newsletters for them to be effective. You can very simply recreate some of these designs or some of these formats for your own emails and effectively communicate with your audience to increase your brand awareness, nurture people in your funnel, and to bring in more sales with your customers or your clients. So that's really what I wanted you to see from this email newsletter design video. Now, last week I was talking about bringing you my previous email marketing for beginners content that I had. It was a training, it was exclusive to a test product that I did. And so that is going to be going live in my store. And it is my birthday week this week, so I'm going to be offering that this week. If you're seeing this the week of May 13th, I am going to be putting that on sale for $14 because my birthday is on May 14th. And I want to invite you guys, if you want to get started growing your email list, that is going to have a bonus training for growing your email list and using lead magnets and the different types of lead magnets. I'm also going to give you a lead magnet template, a beginners to email marketing training that's going to be a video training, and then intro email sequence templates. So these are going to be a couple of email sequence, just plain text written emails for when somebody joins your list. So that is going to be in my store when this video goes live for $14. And I also will probably be doing a sale on my Pinterest products as well. And I just want to say that the goal should not be to overcomplicate Y'all, I've been having difficulty I need to go drink a margarita. Okay, I've been having so many difficulties recording this video, and anyways, I don't want you to overcomplicate your email marketing, and I do not want you to procrastinate or feel that you need to have some kind of expert design skills in order to email your audience. There's just no way that every single business owner is going to be able to be a professional designer. Now, if that's your industry by trade, okay, great. Go and design beautiful and curated and aesthetic email newsletters. But if it's not, play to your strengths. Talk to your customers, talk about your products, talk about your services, talk about the things that your people need to know before they can buy with you or before they can hire you for your service, right? And that is the whole point in today's video, is I wanted to show you that you can do it simply. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or over the top to be effective with your strategy. And I would much rather you just write plain text emails with your logo at the top and just be consistent with that until you are ready to go above and beyond with your design. So I hope this video was helpful. We're going to continue on with this email marketing series with one more closeout video for this beginner to email marketing series. And I hope that you stick along for that. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and notification bell. And if you haven't already, make sure you go back and watch my How to Grow Your Email List video. That way you can continue to focus on email list growth consistently, because you need to always be focusing on that so that you can grow your email list and have more people to potentially sell your products or services to.